He walked into his grandfather's living room, expecting a private conversation. Instead, he found two lawyers hiding in a back room. They were holding a legal document with his name on it. His grandfather had known they were there the whole time. He let them in anyway. That was the day Ethan understood the company hadn't just betrayed him. It had used the one man he trusted most to deliver the blow. Ethan was 22 years old when he first met Clara. She was magnetic. She spoke with a deep, commanding voice. She wore the same black turtleneck every single day. She talked about a device that could detect cancer, diabetes, almost any disease from a single drop of blood. No needles, no hospital, just a tiny machine and 30 minutes. The vision was breathtaking, and she delivered it standing in his grandfather's living room. His grandfather, Arthur, was a former Secretary of State, one of the most respected figures in American public life. He had joined the board of Clara's health technology startup, a company called Helix, and he believed in her completely. So Ethan believed too. He graduated from Stanford with a biology degree and walked straight into Helix. He wasn't just chasing a paycheck, he was chasing something larger, a chance to change medicine to matter. The company's culture made sure everyone felt exactly that way. Every new employee was told they were saving lives, that the work was too important to slow down with doubt. People stayed late without being asked. They skipped vacations. They told their families they were part of something historic. That's the first thing to notice, not the technology, the mission. When someone makes you feel like asking questions is a betrayal of something sacred, that's not leadership. That's a trap. Ethan didn't see it yet. Nobody did, but the signs were already there. Employees signed thick agreements before their first day. Departments were kept in sealed silos. Nobody knew what the others were doing. And above it all, there was Daniel, Clara's second-in-command, also her secret romantic partner. He ran operations with a coldness that made people freeze when he walked into a room. If you questioned him, you regretted it. If you questioned Clara, it somehow got back to him. Ethan pushed all of it aside because the dream was too beautiful to question. A few months in, Ethan started seeing things that didn't add up. The results from Helix's devices were inconsistent, not slightly off, wildly off. The kind of errors that could tell a healthy person they were dying, or tell a sick person they were fine. Real patients were receiving these results and making medical decisions based on them. He did what any honest scientist would do. He wrote to Clara directly. She redirected him to a senior manager. The manager dismissed it. Ethan raised it again. This time the response came from Daniel, not in private, but in a company-wide email. Ethan's questions were called arrogant. His concerns were labeled irrelevant. He was made into an example in front of the entire company. He quit that same day, but he couldn't sleep because the tests were still running. Real patients were getting results that could be wrong, and nobody was stopping it. Here's what makes this case different from ordinary fraud. The manipulation wasn't just happening to the employees, it was happening to Clara too. Testimony later revealed what Daniel had done to her for years. He controlled what she ate, he monitored her calls and messages, he told her she needed to destroy who she was and be rebuilt from scratch according to his vision. He used her ambition as leverage and her insecurity as a weapon. By the time Helix was at its peak, Clara and Daniel had fused into a single machine, her face, his fear. Two people running a company built entirely on control. Everyone inside was breathing their air, and most of them had no idea. Ethan filed a complaint with a state health regulator. Under a false name, he thought he was protected. He was also talking quietly to a financial journalist who had been tracking inconsistencies in Helix's public claims for months. Together, piece by piece, they were assembling something that couldn't be ignored. Then came the phone call from his father. The company's lawyers wanted to meet with him. Ethan called Arthur that same evening. He asked if they could speak privately first, just the two of them. Before anything else, his grandfather agreed. Ethan arrived at the house. Two lawyers stepped out of a back room. They had been there the whole time. Arthur had known. They placed a legal notice on the table, a motion demanding he reveal confidential information, a court appearance order. His false name had been uncovered. His complaint, the one he filed to protect patients, was now a weapon they could use against him. The company hadn't just come after him. It had turned his own grandfather into the delivery system. Ethan walked out. He kept talking to the journalist. Months later, the story broke across the front page of one of the most powerful newspapers in the country. Regulators moved in immediately. The entire structure collapsed faster than anyone expected. Clara was convicted of fraud, 4 counts, sentenced to more than 11 years in federal prison. Daniel was convicted on all 12 counts he faced, sentenced to nearly 13 years. Ethan received a national award for whistleblowing and integrity. Arthur passed away years later. He and Ethan never fully repaired what broke that evening at the house. Arthur never stopped defending the company, even after both convictions. Some wounds don't need a villain to stay open. What happened at Helix wasn't just a fraud case. It was a textbook in dark psychology, running at full speed, dressed up as innovation. Clara used what researchers call persona fabrication. She didn't only lie about the technology. She constructed a completely different identity, the voice, the wardrobe, the language of a visionary, and wore it so consistently that people stopped looking for the person underneath. When the costume becomes the person, questioning it feels like an attack. Daniel ran something called coercive control, the exact same tactics documented in abusive relationships: isolation, public humiliation, the constant threat of punishment. Deployed inside a company, his methods turned the entire workplace into a space where honesty felt like career suicide. And when Ethan became a threat, the system activated deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. They didn't engage with what he found in the lab. They attacked his character. Then they worked to make him look like the criminal. 3 things to watch for in your own life. First, when a leader uses the mission to silence your questions, that's not loyalty they're asking for. That's control. Second, when someone responds to a valid concern by attacking your character instead of your evidence, pay attention. It usually means the concern landed somewhere real. Third, when the person you trust most becomes the messenger for someone who wants to hurt you, the manipulation started long before you ever noticed it. The scariest part of this story isn't the fraud, it's that it worked for so long because people genuinely wanted to believe. That's not stupidity, that's human nature. The question worth sitting with is this: what do you do the moment you finally stop? If you've ever felt like asking questions made you the problem, you're not alone. These patterns show up in companies, families, and relationships more than most people ever realize. Subscribe and we'll keep showing you exactly what they look like before it's too late.